If I challenge you on a mat, how long will I survive?
The best you could probably do is run.
So you're saying I got a chance?
When I design cybersecurity companies, I warranty things. I want customers to not get breached. If there's a loss, I'll cover those losses. I don't think AI prevents the risk that people think it does. I think at the end of the day, we're not dealing with that many adversaries. People are rushing around fixing a lot of loans that don't matter. People give cybersecurity vendors a lot of money, and when the bad thing happens anyway, they go, sucks to be you. I mean, that's a terrible position to be in. I made friends a long time ago with some UFC fighters like Forrest Griffin and others. So now it's like 60 people on the mat with UFC fighters all over the place, teaching a whole bunch of computer nerds how to do martial arts.
Did you get revenge?
I got revenge finally.
Here's the thing that nobody says out loud in security. The tools you bought aren't doing the job. Everyone's building something custom. So I sat down with the people actually solving problems and building solutions. I'm Ali Mesdaq. Welcome to the Security Solvers. Let's get into it. I'm here with Jeremiah Grossman, multi-time founder, investor, and all-around badass. First question for you. How did you get into cybersecurity?
I think a lot of people choose their careers. Cybersecurity kind of chose me. I've always been interested in technology since I was a kid. I think I taught myself to program when I was 12. But I was a long time ago, I used to work for a large biotech firm doing Solaris administration. And I was one of those kids in the very early days that found a vulnerability that hacked into their Yahoo Mail account. And then one thing led to another, and all of a sudden I'm working at Yahoo as the hacker Yahoo. So I didn't pick cybersecurity in that way. It kind of chose me, and it was fun, so I kind of hung with it.
Do you remember any of your Linux and Unix admin experience?
Oh, yeah. I read every book on Solaris and Linux I could find, especially at the time. So I was a certified Solaris administrator back in the day, so I could keep very large systems stable and operating. I can get around in the Unix command line just fine, look at processes, kill things, and all sorts of stuff like that. So then, later I moved into the web, learned web programming. Well, I kind of knew web programming by then, but learned many more languages, things like that. But yeah, the command line's just fine by me.
How did you start your first company?
Honestly, I've been running little companies since I was really young. But I think the first cybersecurity company was WhiteHat Security. When I was at Yahoo, I would assess the security of websites. This is back in like 2000, 2001, so it was very early. It's like 25 years ago by now. And when I was doing an assessment back at the time using the cutting edge of the day, it was taking me about 40 man hours of work per website to test it. And Yahoo had 600 websites, across 42 countries. And 600 websites times 40 man hours was about 11 and a half, 12 years of work if nothing ever changed. And so we had to automate. And there was nothing. And so I wasn't going to write a full scanner. That wasn't even a word we used back then. So I looked at every vendor, read every book, used the most rudimentary, the first generation of scanners that ever existed, and nothing that had anything that really worked, nothing that scaled. I mean, imagine the first DAS scanners didn't even have crawlers. You had to seed that yourself and click around through a proxy. And so when I didn't find anything I liked, that was the opportunity to start what we know as WhiteHat Security, which was a scalable way to test websites really well.
And what are the lessons you take from that first company?
Oh, so many. I made a million mistakes, and I think the lesson is I put too much emphasis, too much respect on my elders, actually, people who thought they knew what they're doing, that should have known what they're doing, that weren't. I had a lot of good mentors at the same time that really did know what they're doing. But I think if I had to look back, it said, trust my instincts more. If it looks right, feels right, the data's right, you probably have the right answer. The only times I really regret the decisions that I made is where I went against my better instincts. So those are the ones. I made a ton of mistakes, but the only ones I ever regretted were when I went against my better instincts.
Interesting. So what were the biggest challenges you had back then that you still keep with yourself now?
Oh, it's a great one. Actually, the biggest one is market dynamics. In cybersecurity, probably like other markets as well, you can choose a market that's nascent. You find a problem that no one's really spending money on. A new category is coming. And so when you build a cool product, you have to convince people to spend money on a product solving the problem that they've never had to spend money on. The good part is there's not going to be a lot of competition. The hard part is you have to justify budget. So that's difficult. The other way you can go is to go into an existing market and be better, faster, cheaper than everything else. So that in that way, it's easier because there's more money available, but you have to differentiate yourself and get attention. Not only just build a product, but convince people to spend money on you and change versus spending something on somebody else. So it's really, when you go into a market, it's that make sure you're solving a problem that people are willing to spend money on, and differentiate like crazy, build hard. So those are some of the many challenges as an entrepreneur that you'll experience.
What made you start a second company?
For me, it was kind of, I like cybersecurity. I really like solving hard problems. And the one that always stuck with me is that, when we were at WhiteHat, we were assessing lots and lots of websites for the biggest companies in the world. And it was a lot of fun. And they would say, we want you to assess all of our websites. And we said, cool. Give us the list and we'll start working. And no one ever had a list. No one had a list or an inventory of all the things online that they owned. And it was a deceptively hard problem. And we tried many times at WhiteHat and unsuccessfully at building a really good tech. And lots of other people, had the same experience. It was really, really hard. So when Bit Discovery came along, we just wanted to finally solve that problem. And we had the crazy idea of we shouldn't be crawling, from a single point and trying to find everything that they own. We decided the crazy idea was to download a copy of the internet first, and then figuring out which assets associate with which companies. It was an ambitious plan, but we were able to succeed at that. And mostly it was a really big, long-standing problem. You need to know what it is that you have in order to protect it. And, it seemed to work out.
You're also a prolific investor. How do you decide what companies to invest in?
So I invest my own money. I also invest other people's money. And when you do that, the whole goal is to put money into a company that's solving a cool problem, grow value, and extract money. It's money in, it's dollars in, dollars out. That's what you have to do. So you have to place your bets wisely. So you need an investment thesis that serves that, something that you know a lot about. So, as an example, my thesis is I like cybersecurity companies. I want to invest early. I have a good sense of the problems that need to be solved. I have a good sense of picking the founders that have the right pedigree, the right grit, the right mindset to be successful entrepreneurs. And then beyond that, it's looking at products that not necessarily just solve a cybersecurity problem. I like to focus on reducing financial loss. I know there's a lot of products that could work well as advertised, disrupt a market, but I want the ones that lower financial loss. I find that to be the biggest unaddressed aspect of our industry, is too much focus on the vuln and the attack and not enough focus on the dollars being lost.
What was your childhood like, and where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Maui, Hawaii, about the furthest away from technology and cyber as you can possibly get. Growing up was skipping school, going surfing when the waves are up. Training martial arts, at times, and then hacking and playing video games when I was bored and not with friends. That was kind of like a super cool life. And I came up in a very entrepreneurial family. My dad always ran businesses, so I guess I got the bug.
Knowing a little bit about Hawaii, did you get into street fights?
From time to time. Yeah, from time to time. It's hard to avoid it growing up in Hawaii, especially different during that era. Not a particularly proud thing, but yeah, it happened.
Tell me about your martial arts background.
So in Hawaii, it's a very physical culture. If you're surfing in the lineup, you might drop in on somebody, you might annoy someone. So the fights are going to happen on the beach and things like that. So at least in my era, everybody trained. So growing up in Hawaii at that time, kickboxing was the thing to learn. Everybody knew boxing, you could throw hands, everybody knew you could throw kicks. So kickboxing came about. And then when I left Hawaii to go work at Yahoo and eventually start WhiteHat Security, this thing called UFC and mixed martial arts just started coming up. And it seemed to be that this new form of fighting, ground fighting, was like where it was at. You get close to a person, you take them down, you nullify their strength, and you submit them. And that was very different than the world was used to. So, you can't run companies and hack all day long. So at night, I found a martial arts academy that specialized in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because I was comfortable standing up, but this ground fighting was new. So I took my first class. I got my butt kicked thoroughly by a 50-year-old grandma, and I was about 25 at the time. And I could not do anything to keep this old lady off my back from strangling me to death. And that's when I knew there was something here, and I had to go keep training to kick her butt one day. So that took me a year and a half.
Did you get revenge?
I got revenge finally. So she didn't know the story. She's a personal friend of mine now, but she didn't know that story, that she motivated me. She just thought it was the funniest thing ever. I'm like fighting for my life and my manhood. And she was just doing it for fun. Like, oh man, okay.
So I hear you like fast cars. What do you like, and how'd you get into it?
Again, back a gift from my dad. My dad was in the auto industry for a long time, owning car lots, fixing cars. So I wrenched on cars, rebuilt cars all through my childhood. And I had a long wish list of cars, my dream list of cars that one day I would buy. And I finally found myself in a position one day where I could afford them. So I had my wish list of cars. I had it for, 20 years. And my first one ever, straight out of the Matrix, was the 1964 Lincoln Continental. It's just the super coolest thing. So that was one of my first. Then I bought a 50 Mercury and a whole bunch of things. So I really liked American heavy metal cars, sometimes muscle cars, sometimes the more cruiser kind of ride things like that. But cars are just fun. I like the old stuff because it's like driving a piece of history, a time in a particular era. Then I own some new stuff that's highly modified, super fast because you just like the feel and the sound of it. And it's just a present to myself and that I like.
You don't know this, but I got my hands on some footage of you being a badass in Boise.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You're being naughty on the streets there with your muscle cars.
No one seems to mind, I think you saw me and my car club toy box. That it's a big facility, 16,000 square foot facility. It's all private. Where we go, we hang out, and we're surrounded by some of the coolest cars around. Not just mine, but a whole bunch of other cars as well. So super cool place where we can hang out, store cars, and it gives us the ability to buy a lot of cars. So I own a lot of cars.
Here's a question for you. What is your favorite movie of all time?
Oh, that's a great question.
I'll put you on the spot here with that
one. I can't even tell you why. It'll be the strangest answer, one you've never heard of, but The Big Blue. It's an older movie, I think late 70s, early 80s, about free diving in the ocean, going down to great depths on a single breath of air. It was just, I don't know, there was something about the ambition of it, the training of it, where it's a person, they're training, and they can do extreme things with just no equipment, no help, going where no human is supposed to be, and coming back up. It's just, for me, it probably doesn't even make sense when you look at the movie that way, but it was like a personal triumph story. It's like an exploration of self.
Quick one. If you're getting something out of this, the best thing you can do is share it with someone on your team. All right, back to it. So let's say you're at a computer, you got your headphones on. Are you listening to music? And if so, what kind?
I don't listen to music often, and when I listen to things, it's the strangest thing. My playlist is filled with sounds of nature, like jungles and thunderstorms and ocean water and things like that. I was in an airport once, and I had headphones on like this, and I'm listening to things, and somebody I was with goes, "What are you listening to?" And pulled it, and it's like the sound of like rain and rainforest, and they're like looking at me like I'm some kind of alien. I'm like, music for me, and music is more artificial. I like the more natural sounds of things. Like I grew up in jungles on the beach. I loved going surfing just by myself, beach by myself. It was just the sound of the world. And I like to carry that with me a little bit because, when you're in an airport or even in your office, it's like the sound of dump trucks and leaf blowers and the lady telling you how to put on your seatbelt. Like, okay, I got this. Like, so just bringing the more natural world into an artificial one is therapeutic.
So tell me about your Black Hat Jiu-Jitsu event. Who is it for? What's it like? And who could I meet there?
So every year, sandwiched between Black Hat and DEF CON, I hold a very large Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu event for first-timers, for black belts, and everybody in between. This started out as not supposed to be like this. So I don't drink or anything at party. So in Vegas, you go to Black Hat, you conference all day, you party all night in the nightclubs and things like that. It's very loud, people are drunk, and that's just not my scene. It's just not what I'm there to do. So I would much prefer, I travel a lot, so I bring my gi with me to visit academies. So one year, I'm grab my backpack after the conference is over, and I'm going out to an academy in Vegas. And somebody goes, "Where are you going?" We're all going out. I said, "I'm going to go train at this local academy." They said, "What, really?" This one guy said, "Can I come?" So I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so we did that, and we posted some pictures the next year, and I guess it inspired some others that next year more people wanted to come. And sooner or later, they said we should do more of a formal event. And so many years later, so I made friends a long time ago with some UFC fighters like Forrest Griffin and others. And so I give Forrest a call and I said, "I want to take over your academy. Can you bring a whole bunch of UFC fighters to do a class for us?" So now it's like 60 people on the mat with UFC fighters all over the place, teaching a whole bunch of computer nerds how to do martial arts. And then we spar a little bit with each other. We can spar with the pros. It's super cool. It's like the most fun thing. It's young, old, men, women, all different ages, backgrounds. Like you could be choking out a CISO if you want to. So things like that. So it's a blast. And we make custom rash guards for every event. And we're about 2 months out from Black Hat now. So I'm starting to organize the next one. Should be pretty epic.
Can you say the names of anyone that's going to be there for sure this time?
I have to give him a call, but I'm sure Forrest will be there. I also made friends with John Wood. He's currently one of the best coaches in the UFC right now. He has a ton of fighters. I really don't know because of the UFC schedule. That who's going to be available and not hurt at the time. But we always have some of the best in the world. Like we had Marab, I think the previous bantamweight champion there. We've had Frank Mir there. I mean, names and people you would recognize. So 2 months out, I really don't know. Maybe 30 days out, I'll know. There's some people that I'm going to make special requests for if they're available. So anybody that's into UFC and martial arts, if you don't come, you will regret it.
So I see you started a new company. Mm-hmm. Why?
So our last company, Bit Discovery, and I found companies with the same team because we're all really good at what we do in our unique disciplines. Our last company was bought by Tenable, and Tenable is a really big respected name in vulnerability management. And we saw how vulnerability management was currently operating. So after we left Tenable, we spent 2 years working with CISOs and vulnerability management teams on asking them a whole bunch of questions because everybody was really disappointed and dissatisfied with the state of vulnerability management. Everybody was buried in vulns. They didn't like the way anything was prioritized. They didn't like the products, The list was on and on and on. And so we started investigating in that particular problem, and we said, you know what? People are dissatisfied. It's not solving the problem the way things are done. We believe we can do better. So that's what started our journey into the company. I can go into the thesis of what we found in our research, but that was really the impetus, is that people didn't like it. It's a long and very old industry, but people didn't like it and they wanted something else.
Yes, please tell me the thesis. I think that's the most interesting part of this whole thing.
So there's this term in our industry, most listening to this will know what it is. It's a CVE. CVE is a cataloged vulnerability, common vulnerability and exposure. And we've now indexed, we mean MITRE, the world and the government, the US government, have indexed 350,000 total CVEs, things in Windows and Oracle and Citrix and all sorts of things. And you scan for these vulnerabilities, and the idea is that if you fix enough of them, you won't get hacked. Now, everybody is buried in vulnerabilities. And here's what's strange, and this was clued us in. We started talking with the insurance carriers, and about a third of their claims were remotely exploitable vulnerability. And that was weird to us. If we're scanning a lot, spending all this money and patching a lot, why are the claims rates so high? So we started looking at, and we started reading about, every industry report. And the first thing we learned was, of the 350,000 CVEs, only 1% of them have ever been exploited, ever. Like, that was strange. 1 and 2%, it's probably like 1.4 right about now. And that's really low. And then we went back to the carriers and we said, okay, can you share with us the list of vulnerabilities that lead to claims, the actual vulnerabilities? And after we talked with a number of them, the numbers came back in the hundreds, not thousands, not tens of thousands, of hundreds, a tiny, tiny percentage. So what we surmised is two things. One is we're not scanning all the assets we should be scanning because it's expensive, so an ASM problem. And the second one, we spend an extraordinary amount of time and effort fixing vulnerabilities that have never and probably will never be exploited at the expense of the ones that do. Now, you might say, like in CVE and CVSS land, the vulnerability scoring system, that you should be fixing all the criticals. It turns out the vulnerabilities that are causing financial loss are not necessarily the ones rated critical. The prioritization models are all wrong. And this stands to reason, because when these models for severity ratings were first created, it was created blind to what the attacker cared about, what they were actually using. They didn't know. Now we know. And the severity rating systems that our industry gives are just flatly wrong. So we really don't even need a rating system, in my personal view. We just need to fix these several hundred vulnerabilities when they show up in our systems, and the adversary's cost will go straight up. So we needed something, the industry needed something very easy, very fast, very scalable, and laser focused on the vulnerabilities the adversary cares about. We didn't have that before. So that's what we're building.
And who did you start the company with, and why them?
I started with 3 other co-founders. First one is Robert Hansen, goes affectionately by the name of Rstink. He's our CTO. He's the one I give impossibly hard security problems to. Like, we have to download the internet and things like that. Great hacker. Our technical skills are complementary, but he gets the cool job. He gets to look at and solve hard problems and things like that. So that's what he does. He gets the job of prototyping the technology design. Then we have Lex Arquette, childhood friend of mine. He started WhiteHat with me way back in the day. He had to leave WhiteHat to do this social media startup I had never heard of before. It was called Facebook. He did the UI over there for them way back in the day, way before IPO. But he designs all of our software now, for many years. So his job is to take the designs that Robert has and make a product that people want to use and love. And then Heather Knoll's our COO. She takes all of her crazy ideas and thoughts and makes a real company around it. Finance, accounting, all those things that really make a company. So as an operational unit, it's very, very powerful for us to design companies.
Sounds like an all-star team for sure. What will be different about how you solve vulnerability management?
Everybody in the vuln management space competes on who can find the most vulnerabilities. They compete on who can bury the customer in findings worse than the other guy. And that's how it's been from vulnerability management for a long, long time. I don't want to do it that way, especially when 99% of the vulnerabilities have never been exploited and are unlikely to be exploited ever. I would like to focus on just the ones that lead to financial loss. I don't want to focus on vulns. I want to focus on financial loss, that if we're not finding the vulnerabilities, if the financial loss numbers don't go down, we're doing something wrong. So I want to reframe the vulnerability management problem, not from finding and fixing the most, to actually finding and fixing the least, but specifically ones that matter.
That's a very interesting take. And how are you building this company different than previous ones?
This company is all virtual. That was all the same. AI for us showed us up at just the right time, so we can build highly scalable, purpose-built systems for this really, really fast. I wouldn't say inexpensively, but we can build more much, much faster. And it helps us to be more competitive against the big heavyweights in our particular industry. So we have our thesis, we have our model. We raised a lot of money to build some very high scalable systems. Before, with WhiteHat and Bit Discovery, we went into nascent markets. This one, we're going into an existing market to disrupt the incumbents.
If I was a buyer of root evidence, how would my life change before and after?
I think, it's funny to think about it. I was just talking to a friend about this today, is that if we do our job well in cybersecurity, any of us, nothing unexpected should happen. There should be no fireworks. It's the most boring job. If we do our job really well, nothing should happen. But as we can tell, our industry is $250 billion. We spend $250 billion a year to lose $1 trillion or more. There's fireworks everywhere. We probably are not doing our job, very well. So what I really want for my customers is to give them satisfaction to know that they have fixed everything that a bad guy finds important. And if they were to get breached with a financial loss by something, it will be brand new, something the world has never seen exploited before. And that's a more defensible position than say, hey, we got exploited by something that was in the backlog 6 months ago. That's a terrible thing. I would rather much them, if we have to suffer a breach no matter what, let's make it in something new.
Here's an interesting question. No one can see the future, but we can all guess. So tell me what you think the cybersecurity market looks like in 5 years.
I know what I would like to make it look like. I don't really know what it will be, so I can know what I'd like. I can only see as far as my company goes, is that I think there's a new way to do vulnerability management in the world. You know what I would really like to see? More vendors with more warranties. This is something I've been beating the drum on for a long, long time. People give cybersecurity vendors a lot of money, and when the bad thing happens anyway, they go, sucks to be you. I mean, that's a terrible position to be in. When I design cybersecurity companies, I warranty things like use the product as designed and you won't have a loss. If there's a loss, I'll cover those losses. I've done that in tons of companies already, not just my own, but ones I invest money in. And I fully intend to do it upon GA for root evidence, is I want to put my money where my mouth is. I want customers to not get breached. I want them not to have financial losses, and I'll cover those losses if what we do is substandard in some way. That's how we learn. Vendors must be accountable for the products that they sell.
So what do you think of the impact of AI agents will have on businesses in the coming years?
When the cloud came, people were signing up cloud services all over the place without the permission of IT. In fact, at that time, the greatest feature of the cloud was bypassing IT, which slowed everything down. So all of a sudden, we had all these business systems all over the place out there. Then when we adopted the cloud, we had open S3 buckets all over the place, kind of like we do now. They're just a byproduct of the exercise. So now in the AI world, we're going to have agents running all over the place doing God knows what. We're going to put data where it doesn't belong, and agents are going to be causing havoc. They're going to be dropping databases, deleting users, and all sorts of stuff. And we'll have to put guardrails around those things. We're going to have a lot of good things too, but in a lot of ways, we don't like to think of it this way, but cybersecurity is janitorial work. The business adopts some technology. We do a whole bunch of stuff with it, and also when we have to compete, and then we have to go clean it up. That's how it was in web security. Everybody went online, went to the web, built a bunch of crappy software, and then we had to clean up the vulns later, like the kind of the work that you do. So I think it's a cleanup effort after the fact. There's no proactivity in cybersecurity.
Well, I know you have tons of opinions. Give me a hot take on something that you think people might disagree with you on.
I think only 5 to 10% of all externally detectable vulnerabilities are exploitable under the best of circumstances. I think that an AI-enabled adversary will move faster, but the same adversary doesn't change, meaning an AI tool for exploit writers doesn't make you superhuman. Someone that doesn't know how to write exploits, you can't give them a tool to write exploits. It'll make someone that knows how to make exploits faster and better, more scalable. So I think at the end of the day, we're not dealing with that many adversaries. It's kind of all around those things. I don't think AI prevents the risk that people think it does. I think there's an economics war at play that we haven't fully figured out, and people are rushing around fixing a lot of loans, spending a lot of time that don't matter. And I'm going to look very closely at the loss ratios from the carriers to see if I'm right.
As a multi-time successful founder, what habits, hobbies, practices help founders the most, or even just you personally?
From a founder perspective, this is one thing I try to do every day to this very day. It's changed a little bit, but as a founder, this is what I tell everybody. Talk to one customer, let's say a CISO or someone in the target market, vulnerability management team, someone in the SOC, whatever. One customer every day, one sales rep every day. It doesn't even have to be at your company, but once your rep or someone else's rep. And well, the first guy, you ask the customer, if you could solve one problem today, what would it be? And of all the problems, why that one? Collect their problems, understand their day. The sales guy, you want to ask them, whatever they're selling today, why aren't you selling double or triple? What's getting in the way? Is it the market, the product, the collateral, the leads? Get into their day to figure out their problems. And then it's one business partner every day. And you ask them very similar questions as the sales guy because they want to sell too. If you have that conversation 5 days a week for 6 months, I guarantee you, there'll be themes in the data and you'll know more about these spaces than anybody else out there just by collecting problems. You know, for me, I try to talk with someone, whether it's a broker or a carrier, every single day, because they are the actuarial data to see if what is the adversary doing and what, if anything, in our market is making an impact. I want to know those things, and the best place for me to find that data is from the insurance carrier market.
So here's a question for you, totally random. I'm untrained in BJJ. If I challenge you on a mat, how long will I survive?
Probably the best way to put it. If you got on a treadmill and ran as fast as you possibly can, how long before you had to stop? That's how long you would last.
So under a minute. Okay, so you're saying I got a chance.
And if because the best you could probably do as far as time is run. So I've run many of these challenges before. I actually prefer the defensive one. Is that I promise not to tap you. I'll just play defensive the whole time, and you just attack with no consequence. And how long will it take you before you give up, before you get tired under your own steam? Like, how long? It's way more humiliating when you figure out you beat yourself. So,
I think I'll be at that black hat. I'll definitely have some fun rolling around with you and, getting tapped, or at least trying to, tap you out, and also meeting everyone that you're going to have there. It's a really nice networking event. It's the best way to actually network with people when you sweat a little. Yeah, you fight them, you sweat with them.
Everybody's a novice on the mat. We're on there with the pros that do this for a living. Everybody has a blast. There's no injuries, nothing gets serious. But yeah, just like it says in The Matrix, you never truly know someone until you fight them.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast and telling us and giving us some insights.
My pleasure, Ali. Thanks so much.
That's it for this one. If this hit subscribe. We drop new conversations all the time. And if you're solving something hard in security right now, I want to hear about it. See you next time.